I remember thinking when I was in the mission home, like how cool it was that like nature and the city were together, because Sao Paulo is huge. It's a massive city. It's like third or fifth biggest city in the world, depending on how you count it. So it's huge, and there's just like skyscrapers, and it's not like New York, like they're shorter skyscrapers, but it's still like it's just skyscrapers and hills and up and down and just lots of like, you know, sidewalks and streets and everything. But at the same time, like there's these massive trees growing up and just lots of plants, and so like it's a lot of green mixed in with the city. And I remember just looking and being like, okay, like this isn't like any other city I've been in. Like New York has like those tiny little trees that line the sidewalk, but these were like just normal massive trees that next to them. And I also remember trying not to cry in the mission home because I had no idea what was going on. They teach you Portuguese in the MTC, and it's great, and you learn the foundations of the language, but then you get there, and speaking it and understanding it is a whole other thing. And so I arrived with a really big group of missionaries. There were like, I think like 11 sisters and 4 elders, which is not normal. Usually there's more elders than sisters, but it was just this big batch of sisters came, and a lot of them came from the Sao Paulo MTC, and then some had gotten their visas, and so they were coming from a mission, and me coming from the MTC, and we all get there, and there was one American who had gone to the Sao Paulo MTC, and so she was kind of talking with the other Brazilians and like the Chileans and the other people who were there, and the rest of us were kind of sitting there like, so what's going on? And our mission president spoke English, and so like if it was something important, he would say it to them in Portuguese and then translate for us in English. But the rest of the time, it was just kind of fend for yourself. So, but it was good because you learn that way. But that was a big thing for me at the beginning, was just the language, because I like talking, so I wanted to be able to communicate. But once you get it down, it's a lot easier. But yeah, Brazil it's beautiful. The pizza's weird. We got pizza our first night there, and they put like corn on top and anchovies, and they don't have tomato sauce. It's just kind of a weird, and it's different in every state. But in Sao Paulo, that's the way we had it. And like lots of onions. I mean, like you can't even see the crust because there's so many onions on top. So that was kind of odd. But no, the people are really nice. They just open right up to you. Even when the sisters, like, I would try to say something, and they would just like hang on my every word, trying to figure out what it was I was trying to say, and then be like, oh, like you want to say this, and just really nice, and like really just trying to help you and communicate with you. And it was awesome. So when I was there, there were about 200 missionaries in the Sao Paulo North Mission, which is a little bit on the bigger side, but not to like crazy big yet. And it's split between what's called the capital and interior. So the capital, the missionaries who are in the city itself, and then everybody else who's in the countryside. So there's kind of that split. So when you have like, you'll have like multi-zone meetings and things where just all the missionaries and all the zones in the capital get together and have a big meeting with the mission president, and there's training and announcements and that kind of thing. And then they do the same thing with all the missionaries in the interior. And there's usually more in the countryside than there is in the capital. So it grabs just kind of the city of São Paulo is divided into like north, south, east, west, and it's all different zones because it's so big. And so we get most of the north zone, and then a giant chunk of the countryside. Like it almost goes into another state. Each of the areas are different. I served mostly in the countryside, and we had one area in the capital. And so it's a lot of hills, a lot of farmland. One thing that was surprising to me, just like geographically speaking, I guess, since I'm from Connecticut, it's like one city's here and then there, and it's all like the cities all share boundaries, like all the different towns. But in Brazil, it's like one town and then a long highway, and then you get to the other town and then a long highway. And so there's not like a lot of side by side. So you take like a lot of buses and things to get to where you want to go. So there's the São Paulo temple, which is in the city. It used to be in our mission, but then they created São Paulo West, I think it was, and then it got stolen from us. But we're still allowed to go there. So every 3 months, if you're in one of the areas in the capital, you can go to the São Paulo temple. There's also the Campinas temple, which is outside of our mission, but it's in the state of São Paulo. And the current mission president, the way he's doing it is now if you're in the countryside, then every 3 months you get to go to that temple. But my first year when it was a different mission president, like you only got to go if you were in the capital. And so there's a lot of temples in Brazil. But Campinas and then the Sao Paulo temple are the closest. And fun fact, Sao Paulo was the first temple in South America ever. It was built in the 80s, I think. So it's one of the older temples, but it's so cool. It's really pretty. The church in Brazil started, I want to say early 1900s, and it started down in the south of Brazil, and originally the mission language was German, because the south of Brazil was settled by a lot of Germans and a lot of people from like the Netherlands and that part of the world. And so, yeah, so they originally spoke German, and then they kind of moved up. And so Sao Paulo was like, I think right after the south, Sao Paulo was kind of the next part to be churchified. I don't know. So it's not entirely new. There are families that have been in the church for like 3 or 4 generations, but it's still, I mean, it's still comparatively new. And my last area was in a district way out in middle of nowhere, edge of the mission boundaries kind of thing. And the church was still, again, like it had been there for a while, but it was still trying to put down roots and still kind of, sometimes it struggles to spread just because of like leadership and like, because there was kind of this burst where like a ton of people got baptized, but like nobody had any leadership training. So they had like a lot of new leaders and just kind of wonky stuff started happening. So I don't remember all the history, but it's kind of depends on where you're at, I guess. But people are really open to it because just there's so many churches in Brazil. There's so many. Like, I don't even know how many times on my mission, like we would pass a place, like for example, like the corner of a street, just kind of like an empty, like for rent building, whatever. And then a week later we pass it and it's a church set up with people there praying and like collecting tithing and everything. So they're very open to religion